Thank you. Good night, and I'll see you in the morning.
Ain't that wonderful? See you in church tomorrow. Hank Parker, all the best to you, mate. Some of these folks want to talk.
Time now for the Pros Pointers, the how-to section of the Bassmasters.
A swimming pool is one of the best places in the world to watch your baits and learn how they work underneath water. So many people buy baits, take them out and use them, go fishing with them, and have no idea what these baits are doing down underneath the surface. If you've got access to a swimming pool, any place where there's clear water, a clear water pond or lake, go out there, use some of these baits, see what they do underneath the water. It'll really improve your fishing. You can take a jig or a worm, you can just see how it flutters and goes to the bottom. You can see the action you need to put into that bait to help you get more strikes. You can take a crankbait, you can see how it runs. If it's running to one side, you can tune it, you can see how you can make it go to the other side. You can learn so much by being able to see that bait underneath the water. Find a pool, find some clear water, take your tackle box out there and experiment with some different baits. Try different techniques, learn how to work them on the bottom where you can actually see that bait moving. You'll learn a lot that you didn't know about what that bait was doing down there. With the jig and frog, you can actually see how it flutters down and how the skirt will flare when it hits the bottom. You'll know that you don't need to leave it sit there very long. When that skirt flares, by being able to see it in the swimming pool, you know it's time to pop it again and make it take a little hop. So find yourself a pool, take advantage of it, and you can learn a lot more about how to work your baits.
Angling history for the North Carolina anglers. Next week, we'll kick off the 1986 tournament season on the beautiful St. Lawrence River and the Thousand Islands area of Clayton, New York. It's one of the wildest and most exciting tournaments in bass competition, so plan to be with us. For the Bassmasters, this is Ray Scott. We'll see you next week. Scott for the Bassmasters. We're at the Thousand Islands area of the St. Lawrence River. This is where it begins, where the first cast on the 1986 Road to the Bassmasters Classic is made. It's the first chance for the bass anglers to start piling up the pounds and ounces that will win an invitation to the world's finals of professional bass fishing. And the first opportunity for these bass fishermen to grab a share of more than $750,000 in payout during the 6 qualifying tournaments. It's where 285 anglers from 31 states and Canada go rod to rod for 3 days to earn a share of the $130,000 New York Invitational purse. It's a test of true grit for fishermen and their machines, a test that's worth $30,000 to the winner. Stay on board. The Bassmasters will be right back from Clayton, New York.
It has come to change your standards. The new Ambassador by Garcia. The unprecedented design lets you adjust braking for perfect casts, match fishing conditions by changing line in seconds, catch more fish with more casts, even get an entire flipping reel built in. The new Ambassador XLT Plus with a lifetime guarantee. It will change the way you fish. Hellbender, Cardinal, Ambassador, Garcia. Performance you can depend on.
Why do I use original fish formula? Well, the answer is simple. Fish formula contains an oil base that perfectly duplicates the natural visual discharge given off by shad, crawfish, and virtually everything that game fish feed on. The remarkable scent and taste attractors included in fish formula stay on my lure or live bait longer, too, and at greater depths. It all boils down to the fact that original fish formula absolutely helps me catch both more and bigger bass in any other species that I fish for. I just don't go fishing without original fish formula.
At Ranger, safety has always been extremely important. As a pioneer in upright and level flotation, our safety standards are among the highest in the industry. Beneath the surface of every Ranger, quality construction and foam-filled cavities tell the whole story. Even with huge sections of the bow, floor, rails, and transom cut away, a Ranger boat remains very much afloat.
Ranger boats, we still build them one at a time.
The New York Invitational and the St. Lawrence River. This historic and beautiful seaway has floated the flag-adorned vessels of many nations for nearly 30 years, connecting the heartland of America to the markets of the world. The Thousand Islands is an area rich in history, tradition, and romance. Once known as the playground of millionaires, it's a place where the wealthy constructed magnificent homes on the Rocky Islands and traveled by handcrafted boats throughout the area to social functions and to the market. It was here in 1900 that the owner of the famous Waldorf Astoria Hotel, George Bolt, dredged and transformed this island into the shape of a heart. And out of a great love for his wife, Bolt began construction on a 150-room castle that was to be his gift to her. But 4 years after this romantic love story began, after $2.5 million in construction and furnishings, Mrs. Bolt suddenly died. Mr. Bolt left the island, never to return, never to finish their castle, never to live the fairy tale the immigrant millionaire began here on Hart Island, now a curious tourist attraction. This is an area where sport fishing has been a way of life for decades. Guideboat parties fish throughout the open water season in traditional ways, drifting minnows along the rocky reefs and grassy drop-offs for smallmouth and largemouth bass, the toothy northern pike and muskies. But for these tournament anglers, only artificial lures are permitted. During the 3 practice days, the New York Invitational fishermen will scour these waters as far as 100 miles from the launch site, trying to locate schools of bass. But one contender here, pre-tournament favorite Dick Garlock, a Thousand Islands native and pro bass angler, has a different attitude toward the practice days.
It's a tough deal when you fish your home waters because you have all these little places you go to, you know, and when you go out and practice, you see everybody there at those places. So a fellow that's usually successful on his home water, well, I try not to go out and practice that much because all I'm doing is just beating up the area that I'm going to fish. And so I just try to go around and fish whatever. But it's a hard deal because if you go around during practice, you see everybody fishing your places, and you can get a little hyper, wondering what you're going to do the first day of the tournament. What I'm tying on here is a 1/2 ounce jig, and I've taken the brush guard off because we don't have brush. We're not dealing with brush. And weeds will stick to a brush guard anyway, so I take that off, just makes it a little better to catch the fish. And then you'll notice here that I take my pliers and bend this hook right down tight so it can't hook a fish. And the purpose of that is during practice, I just like to feel those fish hit. I don't want to hook them and disturb them. And I think that's quite an important thing, to not catch any more than you have to know what you got in the area. Well, knowing the area, of course, I don't have to worry too much because I know they're bass that I'm contacting. If I contact the northern, you can tell he takes off like a rocket. And that way, I just don't hook a lot of the fish that I plan to catch.
Stay tuned for what becomes one of the most challenging tournaments ever on the Bassmaster Tournament Trail.
2020, an offer that will give you a new perspective on fishing. April 1st to 30th during Humminbird's 2020 rebate offer, buy either of America's best-selling depth sounders, LCR 2000 or LCR 2000 Portable, and with proof of purchase, receive a $20 rebate. Humminbird's 2020 rebate. See your local dealer for details or call Humminbird toll-free, 1-800-633-1468.
You know, whether you're chasing the African leopard like this big one here or the American black bass, the challenge to the sportsman is the same. I'm Ray Scott, the president of the Bass Anglers Sportsman Society, and for nearly 20 years we've been helping fishermen everywhere meet the challenge of bass fishing through our own exclusive society benefits and our publication, the Bassmaster magazine. As a Bass member, you'll get 9 big issues of our magazine each year, and every single issue is packed with tips and tactics and down-to-earth information on how to find bass and how to catch them. In addition to your subscription, you'll also receive an official membership packet including your own membership card, decal, handbook, and our handsome embroidered patch. And if you join during this special TV offer, I'll send you a bassing gift absolutely free. It's a bonus tackle pack including a spool of string line, a pack of man's auger tail worms, an LC spinnerbait, and a supply of true turn brood hooks. And that's not all. If you act right away, I'll also include this free copy of Jackpot Bassin' for a grand total value of $9.95. That's right, it's all free, our gifts to you with your $15 paid membership. Now, here's all you do to join Bass and enjoy your free gifts. Call toll-free 1-800-543-1300 or write Tackle Pack, P.O. Box Bass, Montgomery, Alabama 36141. Major credit cards are accepted, and remember, we guarantee your satisfaction or your money back. That number again, 1-800-543-1300.
Day one opens cool and clear. Patchy fog hangs low over the St. Lawrence River as the anglers check out and get ready to head to what they hope will be their winning fishing spots. Here in New York, they're fishing for a 5 bass daily limit. Each fish must measure at least 12 inches. A new rule for the 1986 Bassmaster tournament schedule prohibits the use of landing nets, a move to give the bass more of a fighting chance. There are whispers that Georgia Bass Pro Mickey Bruce is on a big bunch of bass. He's fishing on the Canadian side of the river in shallow water. Rumors prove to be fact, as the Georgia angler indeed has the 5-fish limit by 10:40 a.m. and starts to cull his catch, keeping the larger bass. Other tournament fishermen are finding patterns that worked here in other years during the fall are not productive, and Maine's David Barnes believes he knows why.
Well, it's a little early in the season still because the bass are still in a late fall pattern. The water temperature's not down low enough yet. It's in 64 degrees right now. If it was down in the 50s, around the middle 50, 55, 56 degrees, these fish every year on this seaway, they pull up in these shallows up on the shoals. And they gorge themselves on the minnows and small shiners in here. And you can just pull up here and fish the inside cuts of these grass on these shoals. It ain't nothing to catch 25, 30 bass in a matter of 3 or 4 hours.
Although Mickey Bruce's 5-fish limit weighs in at a hefty 13 pounds, 15 ounces, it's not enough to grab the lead.
Denny Brower, Missouri, classic fisherman, weighing in a limit of 5 bass. Folks, watch the scale. This is a good catch. We'll weigh you a big bass by all means. He's making a run on the lead. This should be 14 pounds or more or less. The weight, 16 pounds, 1 ounce. 16-1 in the new leader, Denny Brower.
TV personality and pro angler Jimmy Houston checks in a 5-fish limit of smallmouth weighing 15 pounds, 14 ounces for 3rd place this first day. And the Oklahoma basser has something to say about the new no-net rule.
If you'll let us use dip net, they could be bigger ones, because the bigger ones you can't get in. You know, just about 3-pounders, about as big as I can catch without a dip net.
Is that your opinion of the net rule? Do you like it?
I would have liked to have had it today. I had one of about 4 1/4, you know, which is a pretty good sized smallmouth that I fooled around there with and fooled around and had him laying up there top of the water and just getting ready to lift him in. He just turned over and a bait come out and he kind of wiggled around there and swam off. And then I had another one about 3 pounds. But
why don't you just run your hand down and grab it?
I don't get that fish all over my hands. That stuff smells, man. Smell that.
Well, I tell you what, that money you win, it smells good, too. It's a different smell. You can wash off the fish, but you can't wash off losing $10,000.
Day 2, and a new rumor. Tournament leader Denny Brower, a 1985 Classic qualifier and winner of the Chattanooga Invitational, apparently has found a tremendous concentration of bass. As the clock winds into the 2nd day, the Missouri Pro pounds the 50-yard stretch of water only minutes from the French Creek Marina launch site. He can see big bass, but they won't cooperate like they must for Brower to hold on to the lead.
You would not believe all the 5-pound fish laying back there.
Some anglers are faring better. Dick Garlock, holding on to second place and fishing the familiar waters near his Alexandria Bay home, has a limit this second day before noon. Where oftentimes the hometown advantage is actually a hindrance, Garlock is in a different position here because he knows the waters so well. He was born less than 10 miles from where he's fishing and grew up on this river. He's working a weed line that drops off into deeper water. Garlock is using a jig and pork frog along the weedy drop-off, a pattern similar to what many others are fishing. But what started out as a sunny, calm fall day is about to change. To the west, a front is approaching, and to the east, Hurricane Gloria is kicking up her heels. A north or south wind here is fishable, but when it gets mixed with west or east, the results can be disastrous. The forecasted south wind goes southwest, and the huge expanse of water on Lake Ontario becomes a wild, windy, white-capped nightmare in only minutes. Many anglers trapped by 8- and 10-foot waves never make it to the weigh-in, electing to forfeit their day's catch and hitch a ride in by car. Boats are run up on rocks, tearing off the outboard's lower units, and others swamp as the wind blows even harder. The Coast Guard is called to assist with beached and disabled boats, helping anglers salvage what's left. A rescue boat from French Creek Marina working with the Coast Guard helps troubled tournament anglers like Oklahoma's Jerry Roden retrieve his battered boat and gear. Boats from nearby marinas in Lake Ontario help other stranded fishermen, including third-place angler Jimmy Houston, get to the weigh-in with their catch. Houston's hitchhiking 5 bass limit weighed 10 pounds 2 ounces to keep him in the hunt. This second-day weigh-in has its catches and excuses by those who got back. Pro angler Woo Daves of Virginia, fourth the first day, comes to the scales.
Yeah, 15-11 yesterday, 15-11 2 days in a row. I say that's pretty good, Woo. Woo, you want to weigh your fish, take your big bass. 2 days, first and second day, 15 pounds, 11 ounces. Beautiful large. Now, these are largemouth, of course, and they're just spectacular bass. Woo, I'd like to ask you a question relative to the weather. I know it was not too bad going out this morning, but what's the situation out there now?
Well, I think anybody that went out to Lake Ontario, which is the general area I went to, is going to have a rough ride back. But the wind's blowing across ways, so once you get back into the river, you can stay on this bank and come pretty fast.
Former Bassmaster Classic champion Larry Nixon weighs in and discusses the new no-net rule with Bass Angler Sportsman Society President Ray Scott.
By the way, I understand today, Larry, you had an interesting experience out there. Our new rule requiring that we not use any landing nets. You did it by hand. What was it like? I didn't see it earlier.
Well, I caught a fish on real light line. I'm using a lot of light line in this tournament because of the clear water and real small lure, and you know, you just have to play them down. You don't just lift them in the boat. You got to struggle around till they're through fighting and then lip them.
And that's what you did.
That's right.
You did a good job. Bob Cobb said it was a fantastic experience seeing you down just trying to compromise with this fish to get him relaxed.
I haven't lost a fish this tournament because of the rule, but you know, in a way, it hampers your partner when he has to net every fish that you catch, or you have to net every fish he catches, because so many times when you catch one bass, there'll be another one following him in, and if you're real smart, you can throw another lure over there and catch that fish. And if you've got your partner getting the net, well, that just puts him in a bad bind, and he don't catch many fish.
So you like the rule?
I like it.
Okay. Thank you, Larry Nixon. All right.
As Woo Daves takes the lead into the final round and the second day weigh-in winds to a close, Denny Brower, who slips to 11th, voices his frustration over the closed-mouth bass he's been chasing.
Denny, you did not do nearly so well today. What happened?
Well, the fish just didn't bite, Ray. They were there. We could see them. There's probably 15 to 20 bass there that we just saw swimming around between 4 and 6 pounds. If they'll bite, we're going to have some fun. But we tried about everything in tackle box today, and we just couldn't interest them in anything. I thought maybe when the wind come up strong, they'd start biting. But we stayed with them to about 3:15, and then we left and tried some other areas and picked up a couple more fish. But the fish are there. Usually the problem is trying to find them, but we got them found this time if we can just learn how to catch them.
It drives you nuts when you can see them but can't catch them. Did you catch any of the bass that you could see swimming on the boat?
Yeah, well, the camera crew was there, and we took a pass through on the inside of the grass just to see whether they were still there. and it was amazing. You could just see bass everywhere, so we backed back out, and I immediately caught one about 3.5 pounds after I went in and stirred them up. But that was it, and we just ended up catching 2 fish out of that school, and you could see them swimming around all day long. It'll drive you crazy, Ray.
All right. Denny Brown, let's give a good hand, folks. He was our leader.
Stay on board. The Bassmasters will be right back with the surprise conclusion of the New York Invitational.
The future of fishing has arrived. DuPont introduces Prime Co-Filament, a whole new fishing line technology. Prime is 2 lines in 1, a tough, flexible nylon sheet and a strong polyester core for half the stretch of ordinary line. Less stretch for a line so sensitive, you feel fish you didn't even know were there. With Prime, you set the hook faster with 3 times the hook setting power. Co-Filament Prime, only from DuPont.
Why do I use original fish formula? Well, the answer's simple. Fish formula contains an oil base that perfectly duplicates the natural visual discharge given off by shad, crawfish, and virtually everything that game fish feed on. The remarkable scent and taste attractors included in fish formula stay on my lure or live bait longer, too, and at greater depths. It all boils down to the fact that original fish formula absolutely helps me catch both more and bigger bass in any other species that I fish for. I just don't go fishing without original fish formula.
Well, anybody passing by would think this was the opening day of duck season here in New York, but really, it's the last and final day of our first Invitational Bass Tournament leading to the Classic. The rains are here will probably be here all day as a result of Gloria, the great storm coming up the East Coast. But fishing should be good. Many of the fishermen are enthusiastic and ready for action, and only today at the weigh-in will we know for sure.
Overcast, dropping temperatures, and rain. Wind forecasts range from moderate to severe. The outlook is not good. Final morning leader Woo Daves knows the wind can mean a lot for his chances to keep the lead. But this seasoned pro angler has his personal philosophy about the weather.
The only advantage this weather would be, and I don't want to really take that advantage, I hope it doesn't get bad. I hope we don't have a day like we had yesterday. I don't want to see anybody get lost or have trouble. I want everybody to have a good fishing day, and I hope the wind won't blow too bad where they can get to the spots and get back. I'd hate to win a tournament knowing that 2 or 3 people had better catches than me and couldn't get back due to the weather. Where I'm fishing the weather, I don't care how the wind blows, I can get back.
Wet, cold, and miserable. But the anglers continue to fight the elements and the bass that for many have just quit biting. Second place angler Walter Bolt of New Jersey weighed in 16 pounds 4 ounces the second round, but today it's different. Only the toothy northern pike seemed to be biting for him and his boat partner Gary Klein of California. Woo Daves is fishing inside the harbor of Kingston, Ontario, over 20 miles away. The 3 patterns of fish he's been on seem to have disappeared. He's been fishing spinnerbaits early, then switching to a plastic worm when the sun comes up, and then going to a jig and pork frog. But the weather conditions today are different. The sun he's counted on to move the fish in the grass and on the sunken barges fails to show. The Virginia angler has gone winless on the BASS tournament trail for 10 years. He wants this victory badly. The final weigh-in. Jimmy Houston in 9th position this morning makes an early bid for the lead.
New York. Jimmy Houston of Oklahoma, folks. You'll recognize him. He's got another great television show, Jimmy Houston Outdoors. He's got a limit of 5 bass. Jimmy, what did you have before today?
26 pounds.
At 26 pounds. Weight, look, folks, 17 pounds and 9 ounces for Jimmy Houston.
Final round leader Woo Daves, who has not won a BASS tournament since May 1975, knows not everything goes the way a basser wants it, as the Virginia angler weighs in for the last time in the New York Invitational.
Now, Woo, remember, went in today leading the tournament. Woo's got to have fish. Woo has 2 bass. He's from Virginia, and his weight today is a puny 3 pounds and 10 ounces. Huh?
I'm proud of it.
Well, how can you be proud of it? You had this tournament won, and all you had to do is catch 12, 14 pounds of bass.
Well, Ray, I had a nice hole. The one I went to start with the first day, it was foggy. I went off to the right and had a hole over on the left. I knew that hole, I didn't think it would hold up but for one day, and since I was first flight, I went there, and it paid off pretty good, so I went back the second day, and it paid off good, and it's kind of hard to leave it today. And some of my friends were catching fish in the area where I had located some good ones, but I didn't want to take a chance on making that run and leave the fish that was over there. And I'd like to thank John Gaffney, Tommy Martin, and Chet Duthat, because they all three knew where I was fishing, and they saw me and left the area and never came back. And I think it shows a lot of sportsmanship, and I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Let's give a nice hand, folks.
As the wet and tired fishermen leave the scales, there is only one angler left who's in a position to catch Jimmy Houston. That's Cliff Kraft of Georgia.
Jimmy Houston is leading the tournament with 43 pounds and 9 ounces. And one of the last people to nail him, or try to nail him, is this gentleman right here, Clifford Kraft. He needs 16 pounds to put in the lead. Watch the scales. 13 pounds, 12 ounces, 13 pounds, 13 ounces to nail it. Let's give him a nice hand, folks. He just missed it by a smidge.
The New York Invitational is history. Jimmy Houston has finally won his second BASS title after a 9-year drought. And the Oklahoma angler is pleased.
100 years. Now, it seems like it's been that long. I really kind of got to the point I didn't think I'd ever win another BASS tournament because I really don't fish them seriously like the other guys do. I kind of have a good time, and I don't pre-fish or anything like that. But really, you know, in essence, I pre-fished here. I was not pre-fishing. We was doing television shows. But really what I learned in June really paid off here. So I guess I kind of did what a lot of the other guys does. But it feels awfully good, and I didn't know if I'd ever win another one again. I don't really, you know, it's been so long, I don't remember how it felt back in 1976.
The beautiful St. Lawrence River and the Thousand Islands. These anglers have seen it all here this week. From Indian summer to raw front edges of cold fronts and hurricanes. But there's always a winner in any tournament, and the champion always discovers a fish-catching pattern. Time now for the Pros Pointers, the how-to section of the Bassmasters.
The fish that I was catching was spinnerbait fish, and they were in about 4 to 7 foot of water. And really kind of just a shallow sloping bank and scattered patches of grass with a lot of laying down rocks in it. And I don't know, but these fish may be there all the time. They were there back in June. They spawned in that water. And I don't really know what they're still doing there, but it's a bank that obviously catches wind nearly any direction it goes, and the birds feed in there a lot, so the alewife probably stay in there quite a bit. And I would just simply run the spinnerbait over the top of the moss about 6 inches deep. Some of my partners had trouble at first catching fish because they wanted to run the spinnerbait down 2 or 3 foot in that clear water, but you really need to get up on top because of the smallmouth. If they had a chance to look it over real good, they would seem like it'd shy away. And I was running a big Strike King Willis fin in the 3/8 ounce size, which is I don't know, about a number 5 or number 6 willow leaf blade on it with a chartreuse and gold skirt and copper blades.
Stay on top, quick feet. That's good for man, I tell you. Now that's tough to get the hang of. So is that smokeless tobacco, Walt. Go long cut? Nah, it's real easy to use. Let's give it a try. Long cut means it packs easy, so it stays put between the cheek and gun.
Not moving around?
Yep, Skull Long Cut makes it real easy to enjoy tobacco without lighting up.
Got a nice taste to it.
And it comes in wintergreen or mint. Easy to use, great taste. That's Skull Long Cut.
It's as easy as falling off a log.
Walt? That's our first stop on the 1986 Bassmasters Tournament Trail and the road to the Bassmasters Classic. Next week, we won't be fishing the tournament, but we will be fishing at famous Truman Lake in Missouri. We'll be taking a look at what makes this one of the greatest bass lakes in the country and the pros' approach to how to catch fish there. It's a great lake and a great show, so plan on being with us. For the Bassmasters, this is Road Fishing. I'll go out of my head.
She said, I'm sorry, honey, I can't go. I'm watching the Orlando Wilson Fishing Show. So I parked my truck and I went back to my room. put up my feet, and then I turned on the tube. I can't go through.
Oh, there's one I think I'll use. This chartreuse one right here with two chartreuse blades on it. You know, I really like these McCollum bush hog spinnerbaits. These things right here has got a little barrel swivel on the end of them. It makes it real easy to change blades on the thing.
You gonna change those chartreuse blades?
I'm gonna change the back one. I think I'm gonna go with
gold.
Yeah, gold one. On these bright sunny days, I like a lot of flash in the water. I like a lot of different types of bright colors.
Well, I got a chartreuse and white. You gonna go with the solid chartreuse, right?
Solid chartreuse.
Well, you know, the water's not really all that stained up in here, you know. So I got a little bit of white in my spinnerbait. We'll see which works the best.
Well, on the bright days, I like to use a real bright colored spinnerbait, especially with this little bit of off-colored water that we have right here.
You already changed the blade?
Yeah.
A little later in the show, we'll talk a little bit more about spinnerbaits, or maybe a good bit more about spinnerbaits. Spinnerbaits are probably, well, they're dubbed the most versatile fishing lure that you can use. And they are extremely versatile and weedless, and you can get in and pull fish out of places that you'd be tough to catch them on any other lure. But anyway, we'll talk about that later in the show. Today we're fishing in the river area of Lake Lanier, located about 45 miles north of Atlanta. Lanier is probably the most heaviest visited, well, it is the most heaviest visited Corps of Engineers lake in the United States. So the lake gets a lot of fishing pressure. And in the spring of the year, the river fish seem to be real active. And that's what we're going to be doing today. We're here in early spring, and we've had some pretty warm weather. We've got stained water, and the conditions look like they may be just right to catch them on spinnerbaits like my brother and I have done for a lot of years. So y'all stick around. We'll be right back.
Pockets like this right here, especially up in this river area up in here in the last couple of weeks. As the water's been warming up, these fish right here has kind of been moving up on this brush, and there's a lot more brush under the water than what you can actually see up on the bank.
Well, I guess you got probably the same thing under the water that you have there on the bank. These coves, see a stump down under the water there. This cove has the appearance to be a little deeper than it really is. It gets down a little deeper than it is now and kind of flattens out. You can see it's not a creek channel in this cove. It's just a little runoff channel right in the very back end of it. Basically, the cove's flat without a lot of features such as drop-offs and so forth. It seems like these little flat coves that don't have creeks in them warm up first.
Yeah, they get warm real quick in the early springtime because they don't have that running water in them. And these first spawners that actually move up to spawn will move up in these things right here. And as the water temperature warms up, they'll get a little bit more active in these little flat pockets like this one right here. I caught a pretty good fish right here off this little old pine top in the water right here.
Yeah, somebody's either, I don't know if we can see it from the camera shot or not, somebody has apparently sunk a little Christmas tree right here. And if I'd saw that a little earlier, we maybe could have thrown a worm or something in there and caught a bass off there. I run my spinnerbait right beside it a couple of times.
I'm going to fish it again just to see. There he is. Oh, that's a good fish, all right.
Giving you trouble, ain't it?
Yeah, that's good little old fish right
Yeah.
here.
Good keeper.
Yeah, that's just about the size fish right here I've been catching up in this area up in here. Occasionally I catch a little bit bigger fish than that.
You know, the difference in fishing deep water and fishing shallow water is most of the time in shallow water, especially this time of year, the fish you catch are scattered. So you don't really need to concentrate and key like on one particular place because you caught a fish there. There's probably other fish, but they're going to be scattered up and down the banks. And now if we were fishing deeper water, down maybe on the other end of the lake or a different kind of impoundment, you'd want to look out on the deeper water areas. When you caught a fish on a piece of stretch in deep water, you'd want to make a number of casts right to the same spot because a lot of times there'll be a school of them. But you don't find them in schools in shallow water. They're more or less scattered.
They've got to be a good fish laying right in the very back of this little pocket back in here.
I missed it. You see him?
Yeah. Good fish, too.
I was just slow rolling. It came right over that brush.
Yeah.
That's the way I've been catching them, just having to take your time and really fish that, slow down that spinnerbait. I fish with so many different people that most of the time people, whenever they approach an object like this right here, this particular piece of wood that's laying in the water right here, they want to throw right on top of their target, right on top of the strike zone, and that really spooks the fish, and they really don't have time to react to the bait. What you really need to do is throw past your target and bring your bait right beside it, and that lets the fish have a time to react, to adjust to wherever they are on that particular piece of structure, to where they have a chance to reach out and strike that bait as it comes past them.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people do tend to... There he is.
Oh, that's a good fish right there, Orlando.
Oh, a little knodhead.
Yeah. Just a little old buck bass been moved back up in here to spawn. I bet that's what it is.
Probably the one I missed just a second ago. Now, I threw back in there, I bet you 8 or 10 times before that little old fish finally took it.
I bet you there's a good large. I bet there's a good fish back in the back of that thing that he's came back in here with.
Probably. Put him back in there.
Yeah, we don't need to hurt them this time of the year.
Yeah.
They're up in here to do their little ritual where my kids and your kids both can come and catch fish year-round. Don't really need to keep fish early in the springtime.
Made another cast there while we work our way out. Tell you, let's move on and hit another area. We caught a couple of fish here. Tony, this spot's very similar to the other one.
Yeah.
That same little stumps and things out in the water. It's really very light cover. The water's down. I guess the water's down, what, 5 feet, I guess. And so a lot of the blowdowns and things that you would have, blowdowns, of course, referring to trees that are falling over in the water, provide some of the heaviest cover you find along banks. Blowdowns and boat docks seem to provide a lot of shade. But when you got water conditions where you've got low water, then basically you're going to be dealing with rocks and stumps. And, of course, don't forget red clay banks, if you have such a thing as red clay in your part of the country, because that water seems to warm a little quicker on those red clay banks, and it provides a good, hard, firm bottom for the bass to bed on. So that's good areas to locate fish. Tony, that old fallen tree don't have much of a top in it, but I bet there's enough there to hold a bass.
I bet they are, too.
Ooh, I came right through it.
Boy, that thing's laying just about right, about 4 or 5 feet deep, right at the very tip. There he is. There he is, right on the other side of that tree.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice little bass.
I don't get a hook in my hand. He was laying right on the other side of that little tree right there and on the shady side of it.
You know, when you don't have a lot of cover in an area, in a cove, it's a good spawning cove, that's just about got to be on that cover, what little cover is available.
That's a good little old fish right there. I love to catch them. I love to catch them things like that. Especially when you can just go in and key in on an area. You know that they're laying there, and they're so predictable at times.
Well, you know, that's the good thing about fishing shallow water versus deep water. So many people say, well, you know, if you wanted to start trying to learn the basics of fishing, you know, how would you do it? I tell them, you know, find some stained water in a river area and fish visible cover. And don't try to do anything fancy with your bait, just like we're doing today. We're using a technique that I refer to as just slow rolling. Now, rolling spinnerbait is just a steady, continuous crank. Now, if you're cranking it real slow like we're cranking, that's slow roll. A little faster is a medium roll, and of course, you know, you can fast roll it. And then rolling is the simplest technique. But now there's other times, you know, fish don't want the same retrieve all the time. If they don't want it rolled, they may want it. Another of my favorite techniques is to cast the spinnerbait out, let it go to the bottom in relatively shallow water, pick it up and move it, and then let it drop. Now, as it drops, most of your strikes are going to occur on the drop, so you need to let it fall on a semi-tight line. So that's what a pull and drop technique. And you can even slow that down, fish it like a plastic worm. What happens is the spinnerbait just collapse laying on the bottom, and as you pick it up and move it, it'll barely straighten up, and the blades will helicopter real slow, and it'll collapse and fall back to the bottom. Let's see, a lot of other techniques. One of my favorite techniques is what you call bumping the stump or bumping the cover. And that's throw your spinnerbait past the object you're fishing and crank it in so close to that cover that as the blades are rotating, they hit the cover, and it causes the blades to rattle or make contact with the cover, it'll make the bait move a little bit. And a lot of times that'll cause them to take the thing. It just causes what you might refer to as a reflex strike. They'll be holding on that particular piece of cover, and they feel that old spinnerbait, or watch this, hear the spinnerbait coming. As it crashes into that piece of cover, they just charge up and get it.
I knew he was there. He had to be laying right there. Another nice little fish. He's cutting up like a show dog, isn't he?
Oh. That's another spotted bass, I swear. Water temperature up here is about, I'd say, in the middle. That's smart, Alec.
Teach you to catch him.
Well, water temperature up here is in about the middle 60s.
There he is. Right off the same place.
Oh, I got one too, Tony.
This right here's a pretty good little fish right here, Orlando.
Blown right in. Look at mine got off. Look at it. That's a doggone. That's two that I've let off.
Oh, man. Sometimes these fish on these spinnerbaits, they don't really reach down and grab them real good.
Yeah, I think I just barely had him hooked.
Is that right?
That's the reason I was playing him light, and he just stayed there long enough to get
Boy, that's a beautiful little old spotted bass. There, once
That's a
again.
large one.
That sure is a largemouth, isn't it? Huh. I thought we was just catching spotted bass on this bank.
Tell you, Tony, let's take a break. Let's rest a few minutes. Let's talk a little bit about the spinnerbait, some of the different things you can do with it.
All right.
I've got what I'm using today, I'm using a 1/4 ounce spinnerbait. And when you say spinnerbait, I actually got two different kinds of baits that people refer to as spinnerbaits. Now, I guess if you look at the basic difference in spinnerbaits is some of the spinnerbaits are tandem spin, 2 blades, and then some of them have 1 blade, or a single spin spinnerbait, and they both serve a particular function. Now, for slow rolling a spinnerbait or in extremely muddy water, when you need a lot of added flash and attraction to attract the bass, the tandem spin works better. But fishing, the bait is a drop bait, or pulling over stumps or limbs and dropping it, in other words, a technique I refer to as dropping. I like to use a single spin spinnerbait. And for that reason, when you pull the spinnerbait along, the blade, of course, is standing out, and it's rotating. And as you stop pulling, as you go over the limb or the stump or whatever, and the spinnerbait falls, the one blade will stand up and rotate as it falls. It will helicopter. Now, what happens when it helicopters, that means there's a little resistance as the spinnerbait falls, and you can maintain contact with it. In other words, you can feel that bait better as it falls if the blade's helicoptering. In a tandem spin, most of the time when you quit cranking them, this blade will spin, but this one will flutter, and it will cause a little bit of collapse, and the spinnerbait won't fall straight. It will fall like a flat rock. And so you can just maintain a little bit better feel with a single spin over a tandem spin. For instance, this is a full 1 ounce bush hog with big giant willow leaf blades. Now this is the bait that's gotten so much press lately because it's caught so many big fish. But you need to fish this bait on real heavy line and a real heavy rod, a rod similar to a flipping stick, or Zebco's new 6'6" heavy action rod, because you're going to need a lot of backbone and you're going to need heavy line. But the reason for the heavy line is so when you set the hook, you don't get a lot of line stretch. The lighter the line, the more stretch you have in monofilament line. Or you can use a good strong pound test in the new co-filament line, the new prime co-filament. But you need a line heavy enough that you don't have a lot of stretch when you get ready to set the hook. A lot of times, even largemouth bass will just come up and nick the skirt. In other words, the skirt's hanging out behind the thing, and they'll come up behind it, and they'll nip at the skirt, and you'll miss them. So many times when that happens, you can add a trailer hook. Now, basically, the trailer that you use behind the spinnerbait is just a standard hook. But the only difference is it has a real large eye. And this eye is large, so when you insert it over your hook point, it's large enough to accommodate the barb on your hook so you don't squeeze the barb on your hook shut. Now, what I prefer to do is take a piece of surgical hose, And that just comes in little strips similar to the one I had in my hand. You just wet the surgical hose and insert it over the eye of the hook, like so. Then you snip off the excess, like so. Now you've got that little piece of neoprene hose right over the eye of the hook. All right, you just insert your hook point through that piece of neoprene. It's a little difficult to get through there sometimes. But what you've done, you've made the stinger hook stand up on the rear of your spinnerbait hook. So now, instead of flopping around back here and being more apt to catch weeds and brush and so forth, a lot of times when you pull it over a weed, if the stinger hook is just flopping, it'll catch a limb or something hanging you up about every other cast. But when you insert that piece of neoprene or whatever over the eye of the hook, it allows that stinger hook to stand up just like a trailer hook. I mean, just like your jig hook, so it's more weedless.
There you
Get a little bass.
come right out of the top of that little old tree right there.
Well, that's good, too. Right there.
I want you to look at this.
Yeah, you know, we were talking about that a few minutes ago. You know, bass have a couple of different ways to detect the food and so forth in dirty water. And I guess the two primary ways are by sight and by vibration or sound. When you got muddy water, of course, you know, that eliminates the sight, so they have to more or less home in by sound. And the bass's side more or less acts as a sounding board, the shape of them. The vibrations will kick off them, but they're detected by this lateral line. And that's how they home in. This is their sense of
Vibration.
How they sense motion or whatever is detected by the lateral line.
That's a pretty little old fish
That's
right
the
there.
bass's lateral line. Yep. There you go. All right. Well, we fished it pretty hard. You caught that fish on about the 10th cast.
About the 10th cast of that one tree right there.
Let's come and head right back out of here. A couple of days ago, if we could go up into the river area, because it's a little too stained up there, or a little too muddy. Yeah. Anytime you look down in the water and you can see silt, in other words, fresh mud floating in the water, I just don't like to fish those kind of areas unless that's all that's available, and of course you got to make do. But I like to move downriver until you get an area about like we've got. The mud and so forth is settled out and the water's just stained and the fish, the water's dirty enough that you can fish close like we're fishing and yet not spook the fish. And the fish are more comfortable up in the shallower water.
That looks like a good one right there, son.
Whoa, don't get around a trolling boat.
I'll pull him up here and I'll lift him for you.
Yeah, right.
What, you gonna let that fish right there and just beat you to death? Oh, that's a pretty fish right there.
Yeah. Come on, Mark. I want you to look at that. Now, that is a spotted bass.
I'm telling you. Boy, that's a magnum right there.
I'm gonna tell you, that spotted bass will weigh, I'd say, as fat as it is, he'll weigh 4 pounds, 4 1/4, wouldn't you?
4 1/4.
You know, spot just weighs heavy. That fish is like a ton of lead. Look at it.
You know, world record, that fish right there is like catching about a 9 or 10 pound largemouth.
Boy, that's a beautiful fish. I'm
God,
gonna go ahead and turn her loose.
Yeah.
She didn't do all that jumping and carry it on like a, I'm gonna revive her a little bit. We had her out too long.
Boy, they fight themselves to death.
There she goes. I tell you, that spotted bass was apparently on the bed. You know, you see how slowly she swam out and just stayed there and just pulled.
You know, that's something I've noticed, especially this time of the year, as this water right here warms, they get a little bit more active, but they're still sluggish like that right there.
Well, I think when they spawn, they get that way. They get pretty much sluggish when you catch them.
The other day, I caught a real nice fish.
She didn't hit that spinnerbait hard. She came up behind it and just pulled on it.
She probably didn't want to be that aggressive at it.
Just like you were coming over a twig or something, you know, just a little pressure there.
Yeah.
I wasn't really sure it was a fish when I set the hook.
Well, there are a lot of folks like to have a fish like that one right there.
Yeah, I tell you, that's a beautiful spotted bass.
I'm telling you, what is the world record now? I think 9.2, 9.3 now.
I don't know.
I'm almost sure it is.
9-something.
9-something, I think, is tied. Two
I can't
places,
imagine
one in
a
Alabama and one
9-pound.
in California.
I can't imagine a 9-pound spotted bass.
Oh, boy, I'd love to catch one that size.
Ooh. Okay, so, well, we've had a good day, Tony. We've caught a lot of bass, and I appreciate you taking time and coming to do this thing with me. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it.
See if we can get one more for we've got to go.
How
Folks
big
at
is
home's
this
got to
for the
leave,
team?
but we don't.
It's getting just about right now, baby.
Scott for the Bassmasters, and today we're at Truman Lake in Missouri, one of the hottest bassing spots in the entire country. On board with us will be professional bass angler Denny Breyer, a fishing guide on Truman Lake. He's a great bass angler and has proven it by qualifying for the last 4 Bassmasters Classics, the world's finals of professional bass fishing. With Denny is Chuck Roberts, not only the guy who writes the Bassmasters Classic television series, but as a fisherman practices what he writes about. Chuck's been bass fishing for more than 40 years and has set several world records on light line. They'll be fishing and talking about one of the toughest sets of conditions any bass fisherman will ever face. That's a cold front, stained water, and falling water conditions. What they come up with proves just one thing, that somebody, somewhere, is always catching bass. So stay on board. The Bassmasters will be right back.
Truman Lake near Warsaw, Missouri. This 7-year-old impoundment that some refer to as the Toledo Bend of the Midwest because of the abundance of standing timber is a bass factory. There are many reasons Truman is as productive as it is. There's an abundance of cover and bait fish. Also contributing to its continuing success is the fisheries management program. There's a 15-inch size limit on bass here, which keeps the fish in the lake till they're mature enough to spawn. The strict enforcement of the 15-inch limit keeps a representation of all year classes of fish in the lake, a necessity if there's to be a balanced population. While there are as many stories as you can listen to about the 100 bass-a-day trips to Truman, this lake, like any, has her moods.
Then you've been guiding here, what, 4 or 5 years? That's almost since the lake was first built, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose I've been guiding out of Sterritt Creek for about, 4 or 5 years, something like that. But the lake itself was impounded, I think filled up about 6.5 years ago. It's probably 7 years old, but it had a lot of old farm ponds, and the old river channel itself had some good fish in it. And they've taken a 13.9 out of the lake already. It's got some big old fish in it. But, you know, it's kind of a strange lake in a way, Chuck, because like right now we're fishing it, it's at normal pool level, and it's about 55,000 acres. Now in the spring, and it'll come up with the spring floods that are coming in from Kansas and some of the surrounding states, and it's not unusual for the lake to be 10 to 20 foot high. And one spring we had 30 foot of water over the normal pool level, and the thing just goes crazy. It'll double in size, almost triple at times, spreading out into these flats. So it'll vary from time to time on different trips people make down here. It can look like a totally different lake.
Has the fishing, in your opinion, remained as good as it was when you first started? Or is it a different kind of fishing?
Oh, it's definitely a different kind of fishing. A lot of the timber's deteriorated. It's still good, without a doubt, and I feel getting better. The fish are getting bigger, but a lot of those easy schools of fish that were just roaming the banks have been caught out. And you've got to work a little harder for your fish, but you can still have some of them 100 bass a day days, and you can also have some of them days where you can't buy a bite. It's just, you know, with all this cover and all the bait fish, it's a challenge to fish. There's a lot of different places they can hide.
What do you like best? What time of the year here?
Oh, I don't really have a preference, Chuck. The lake's kind of got a reputation of being a fantastic summer lake, and it is a tremendous summer lake, but I think it's good all seasons, probably except for the cold winter months when occasionally it does ice up. But fall can be great as far as buzzbait action and spinnerbait action. You can have good flipping in the spring and the fall both. During the summertime, if you like to fish plastic worms on the points and the deep water ledges and creek channels, it can be real good. Really, the only month where you don't have the good fishing is in the dead of the winter, and then it pretty well dies off. And I think the reason for that is none of us are out here trying it. We're out hunting and doing other things. I think we'd come out here and get a jig and spoon or a jig and frog, we could probably catch some of these winter fish.
The transitions between the spring, summer, winter, and fall seasons can be confusing, as can falling and rising water. But knowing how to fish these conditions can make the difference. Today, there's a cold front pushing through. The water is stained to murky and falling. Water temperature is in the high 50s.
That's right. But how about like today when you're on the backside of a high? You know, the north wind come up yesterday pretty good, and usually, you know, they'll bury their heads in the mud or something like that, and about the only way you can get them out is to, you know, grub them out with a jig. How soon do you think that they'll pick up after that weather situation and start getting a little more active?
Usually in the fall like this, the fronts don't affect them near as bad as like in the spring when they're wanting to spawn. At times, they'll just bite right on through a front and you'll really not notice a difference. At other times, you're right, they're going to bury up in those bushes, and it might take 2 or 3 days after the front before they get aggressive again. These fish here with the bright sunlight, I've got a feeling we're probably going to have to go to flipping the jig later in the day in order to catch them. But we've got the off-color water, and anytime you got off-color water and the fish are shallow, you can get them to bite the spinnerbait even after cold front. But the key to it is slowing it down, bringing it through them treetops, and then letting it start to flutter down. You'll get that fish coming out and get that reflex strike. And that's what we're trying to do in these isolated bushes.
The rumors at marinas about the fish not biting will affect many anglers, to the extent that it can make them counterproductive. In tournament angling, on the other hand, it's a well-known fact that in any lake where there are bass, someone will find them, figure out the right pattern, and catch the fish. One of the biggest reasons the pros on the Bassmaster tournament trail consistently catch fish is because they apply their knowledge to the situation at hand and go about establishing a pattern in a logical manner. After a particular pattern proves itself, the anglers will stay with whatever method of fishing is paying off, moving around the lake to different areas, but still fishing the same pattern. For example, if the fish are located on secondary points in wooded coves with a southern exposure and are hitting vibrating baits worked parallel to the shore, this pattern, if working in one area, should be tried in similar appearing coves. Stay tuned and learn how these anglers figure out the right pattern. The Bassmasters will be right back. Roberts start today's fishing by establishing a pattern with jigs and spinnerbaits. Part of this first effort is spent finding out what won't work. The elimination of unproductive areas and techniques narrows the search for what is productive.
Then, you know, those last 2 bites have been exactly the same kind of water, and that one when I missed earlier and then you threw in there and missed was also the same type of water, you know.
Yeah, I think we might be putting a pattern together, Chuck. It seems like wherever you can find these fine tops of trees that are broken off laying in the water or a laying log, it seems to be that's the key. That's where they're laying. The water in between these little stobs and that just aren't holding fish today. They want that heavier cover. You know, that's the cold front, this bright sky. That's what's put them into that.
Once Denny and Chuck establish a preliminary pattern, they continue to work similar areas with similar baits for a distance of 20 miles from the marina. Although bass can be found anywhere at any time, knowledge of basic seasonal patterns is important. In the summer, bass tend to hold on points and bends in river and creek channels, feeding on moving schools of bait fish. In the fall, as cold fronts push through, the bait fish seek warmer water in the coves. The bass move with them. As the water becomes really cold in the 40s, the bass will stack up on deeper structure and become less active. But they'll move shallow during brief, warm periods. As spring comes and the water warms, The bass move into staging areas for their annual spawning migration, moving closer and closer to shallower spawning areas with the rising water temperatures. Usually, the first productive pre-spawn and spawning areas in a lake will be in the north and northeast coves. This is for several reasons. These coves, those facing south and southwest, are exposed longer each day to a warming spring sun. They're also warmed by south winds, which usually blow warm. And on the other side of the coin, they're also more protected from late-season cold fronts with north winds which blow cold. These north and northeast coves are also prime fall fishing areas for the same reason: water temperature. Lure selection, meaning type, size, and color, is also very important at this time of year.
Little fat one. Let me ask you a question.
Beautiful.
What do you think? Denny, you know, you've been using the chartreuse, pretty much that big blade in the pork on it the whole time. And do you think there's a lot of difference in the color as far as what you're catching on it because of the watercolor or time of year?
I really do, Chuck. This time of the year, the fish are primarily feeding on shad. And I like to use colors that kind of tend to represent a shad: your whites, your chartreuses, your yellows, your lighter colors. But when you get into the murky color water like what we're fishing today, I think your chartreuse is a little better. It's a little brighter. They can probably see it a little bit better. And I'll mix it up a little bit. Copper blades I like in the stained water, and the blue's just something different to give them a little different look. We're in the fall period of the year, and a lot of these bigger fish have seen a lot of different baits, and I'm trying to fool some of them bigger fish by using kind of a gaudy-looking bait like I got on.
Ain't no question that they get educated.
Huh.
What did you catch there?
You know, they didn't put all these trees where they were supposed to, Chuck.
Stay on board. The Bassmasters will be right back with more action from the Truman Lake Bass Factory. A pattern that says the bass are in cedar trees in North Coves and are biting spinnerbaits is not often a complete pattern. There are sub-patterns. This means further refining what you've learned. For example, Denny Brower and Chuck Roberts found the bass holding around cedar trees and in heavier bushes. But after working 3 similar coves, they determined that all strikes and catches had come from the front of the coves, the areas closer to the main lake and deeper water. The brushy back ends of the coves, which act like magnets to many anglers, were unproductive.
I can't hardly wait to get down there where Denny's fishing. It should be real good.
I'll fish out here a while, Chuck.
No, that's okay. I'm having a lot of fun.
You still got that ugly bait on?
No.
Okay. I'll let you fish then.
Little fish.
Gee. I don't even set the hook on those kind.
I know. I've been watching him come by my head when you set the hook on him with the jig.
Now, this lake's got a lot.
He did glom on to it.
It's got a lot of fish in it that size, Chuck, but, you know, that's just a good sign that they're reproducing well, and they'll all grow up to be 5-6 pounders someday.
A time-consuming and often unrewarding habit of many anglers is continuing to try areas which have proved unproductive. Fish are in certain areas because there's something there they like. Continuing to work the areas that are producing fish is smart.
The key to this lake with all the covers, continually keep moving until you do catch a good fish, and then thoroughly work that area around where you caught that fish, say a 100-yard circle, and a lot of times you'll find the whole school of them there and really be able to capitalize on it. Too many people make the mistake of they get into one cove and just work it to death, and the fish really haven't moved into it. They're not everywhere, that's for sure.
And yet another pattern within a pattern. Lure presentation. There are times when bass are extremely aggressive one day and sluggish the next, usually due to a weather change or water fluctuation. A lure retrieve that worked on Saturday might be worthless on Sunday. Again, it's part of the fish-catching pattern. The best rule in establishing the correct retrieve pattern is first, slow down. Second, experiment. Change the retrieve.
Every one of these bushes.
I know it.
Huh?
I know it. I saw him come up out of there.
Look how wide he is, though.
Well, that's that off-color water, Chuck.
Doesn't seem that dirty. I guess it has been, though, hasn't it?
Boy, I tell you, I thought he was 5 pounds when he come out of there. Brought it over and let it flutter, and he grabbed it.
I'll tell you one thing, Danny, they are getting more aggressive.
I tell you, Chuck, all I did on that last fish was I threw past that there lay-down tree, and as I got it to my side, I let it start to flutter down. As soon as it started to flutter down, here he come. You could just see him coming out of the dark spot of it, and he just jumped right on it. I think every one of these lay-down cedar trees like this probably have a fish in it. The key to it is the isolated one. It's one here, one there. If you got a whole bunch of them together, they don't seem to be in it. But where you got the shallow water with one by itself, I'll guarantee you there's a good fish in it.
However well patterned, the bass is predictably unpredictable. Oftentimes, experimenting with a different lure will pay off. But one fish a pattern does not make. An example is this buzzbait caught bass. While the bass jumped on the topwater lure of this cast, it was the only strike on a buzzbait the entire day.
Interesting thing, it's the first cast I made in the buzzbait today.
Is that right?
Yep.
Boy, he sounded like toilet.
He nailed it. I got about 3 cranks on him.
Oh, boy, he's fat fish.
Oh, yeah, real fat.
Huh.
You know, something else interesting, this is a 1/4 ounce buzzbait. Little bitty one.
Yeah. Well, once in a while, after a front like we've had, by downsizing in baits, it can make a difference, and you can get a few more strikes. But usually after a front, they won't hit topwater at all.
Even though both jigs and spinners are producing for Denny and Chuck, how these two anglers are fishing them makes the difference.
There he is.
Funny. Right there. He's right where he's supposed to be, wasn't he?
Boy, I'll say he was. He come out of there and just hammered it.
You've thrown in there, what, 4 or 5 times?
Yeah, just making little bitty flips with a spinnerbait, which, you know, is something a lot of people don't do. They think you got to cast a spinnerbait. You fish it on a long rod, a lot of times in this heavier cover, you can just make little flips like you do with your jig and frog and kind of flutter it around them branches. I thought he was a bigger fish the way he come rolling out of there.
Too. Got him. Big fish.
Oh, God.
Oh, darn it.
Damn.
That's a big fish.
Man.
Big fish. Big fish.
Truman Lake and the end of the day. The fish are here. They just have to be figured out to be caught. Time now for the Pros Pointer, the how-to section of the Bassmasters.
We'll talk a little bit on the live rubber jig. It's something that really got famous about 6 years ago. People had been throwing it for years and years and years, but a few years ago, people went to the live rubber jigs instead of the bucktail jigs and really started catching some big fish. There's a lot of things you can do to a jig like this that's going to help you put more fish in the boat. One thing I do straight out of the box, they come with the weed guard that usually sticks up above the jig. That could hit the roof of the fish's mouth and deflect a strike. So I take a pair of scissors and I trim it. Just kind of at an angle. Just about like that. It's still just as weedless as it was before, but you're not going to hit the roof of the fish's mouth with it that way. They've also got paint in the skirt. Flex it a few times when you first get them out of the package. You'll catch more fish that way. You won't get hung up anymore. Another thing I do is I take that skirt, let it hang down, take my scissors, and just trim off about a 1/2, 3/4 of an inch. In the water, it'll make that skirt flare a lot more. Okay, behind that jig, you can do several different things. When the water's cold, below 60 degrees, I usually use a pork frog. If I want jig to fall fairly fast, I'll use a small pork frog like a number 11. I'll usually put it through with the fatty part down. In other words, run the hook through that fatty part so that it's hanging just like that. It's a super big bass bait, and you work it on the bottom. You work it in slow little hops. You fish it a lot like a worm, but you can fish it a little faster. You can swim it. You can do a lot of different things with it. You just have to see what the mood of the fish are in for how fast you work it. If I want this bait to fall real slow, I'll go to a bigger pork frog like a #1 or even the jumbo pork frog. That'll slow the fall of it down a lot, and a lot of times entice a lot more strikes. There's several other trailers you can use with this jig. When the water warms up, metal flakes a lot of times will key a lot more strikes. I'll go to these crawdads, plastic crawdads in metal flake colors, and you rig them the same way. You're just threading them on. Always want that bait where it'll hang straight like that. That's a big, bulky bait, and it puts a lot of pressure waves out in the water. It'll attract a lot of good strikes. Another thing you can do is put a gator tail type worm behind that jig. I usually bite off about a ½ inch of it and just slip it on the same way I did the plastic bait. And as it's falling, this tail is going to put out more pressure waves, and when the fish are active, it'll attract a lot of strikes. So you can mix up your colors, you can mix up your type of trailers, you can do a lot of different things with jigs to help catch a lot more fish. Another thing you do to this jig is you take, once you've got that weed guard trimmed down, you got to sharpen it. There's not a hook on the market that comes out of the package sharp enough to fish. When you're sharpening a hook, you take your file and you run it towards the head of the jig. You run it down both sides, just a little bit on top. You don't want that point to be angling down. Just get it so that it's so sticky you can't pull it across the top of your thumbnail. And then that jig's ready to fish, and it'll put a lot of good fish in the boat for you.
By the way, Denny and Chuck had 9 big bass on during the trip, but they didn't land them. They called it fisherman's luck, all bad. Listen, seasonal patterns work, if you work the pattern. Now, next week, we'll see an entirely different season. We'll see different patterns when the Bassmasters travel to deep, clear Sidney Lanier Lake for the $120,000 Georgia Invitational Bass Tournament. For the Bassmasters,